Six,
Oh
but
my. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Entrepreneurship is a Marathon. Are you concerned about what next for your business in this wild market of prices and consumer uncertainty? While in times of crises and transformation, Marcia here delivers potent messages to guide leaders to help their teams pivot rapidly and innovate. So what better guest during this confusing market times than Marcia to join us here, right? Pivot. The word pivot, I'm putting in quotes, right? It's a popular yet commonly misused term, and it will continue being used. But tune into our episode now with the Pivot Provocateur, Marcia Daszko, on how to be a great leader, always pivoting, rapid change to meet a need. But first, you might be new to the show. What's happening?
Welcome to Entrepreneurship is a Marathon, a podcast about how you can grow a profit-producing, purpose-driven business without burnout. We don't need more people starting businesses. We need more people continuing. Each week, we'll deliver the latest and greatest tips, tricks, and strategies for you to revive, grow, and scale your business. Now, here's your host, consultant, professor, and the business defibrillator, Vanessa Zamy.
For more than 25 years, Marcia has passionately been speaking, consulting, and guiding executive teams in Fortune 500 private corporations, education, the U.S. Navy, nonprofits. And on this episode, Marcia joins us for a special episode on how your business can most effectively adapt to the economic, political, geographical, and any times of change that you are dealing with. Yes, because it all happens. Before we get into the nitty gritty of how to pivot effectively, as always in every episode, what has been your win of the week, right? I ask it every single week, so you shouldn't be surprised. What has been your win of the week? If you're watching us via the replay, I know a lot of you watch on the replay, type it in the comments and chat below. What has been your win of the week? It could be a business win. It could be a personal win. Now, yes, we go live on Tuesdays. So think about the last 7 days. Last 7 days, what has been your win of the week? If you are a fortunate person and you're an abundant person, you're probably experiencing a win even today. So that is great, right? That's what you want to get to, a win every single day. However, if you're having trouble, it's totally fine. You know, it might have been an overwhelming time for you in business. It's the beginning of the fall season, beginning of Q4, whatever it may be for you. And no matter when you're listening to this, either way, what has been your win of the week, whether personal or business, right? It is important that, you know, as you go through entrepreneurship marathon, that you acknowledge the things that are actually good, that are actually happening, right? It's very easy. I've seen some of my clients, right? It's like they almost for a second, I'm like, oh yeah, but, and I'm like, no. All right. What has been your win, right? Let's celebrate those wins. So let's start with our guest. Marcia, what has been your win of the week?
My win, it was great listening to you say that because it gave me time to think, whoa, what have I done? And I got over jet lag and pivoted back into my focus on business.
Awesome. Wonderful. Fantastic. Well, that's great. There you go. Oh, already using the word pivot. What has been my win of the week? So my win of the week is actually more of like a personal win, very, very personal. So I was on this call earlier today and they were talking about like what is your celebrations. And while someone was talking about it, she kind of alluded to, she was like, oh yeah, even if you did your laundry, like what has been your win, right? And that reminded me though, so a couple weeks ago, it was like a couple weeks ago where I was wearing this underwear and it kept going up my butt and I don't wear a thong. So I was like, why is this underwear keep going on my butt? Like I'm wearing a thong. And I'm like, I don't understand. So it turns out, right, for women underwear, there are different shapes. Okay. So I did my research on this stuff on Google. I went on Google and I was like, what is the right underwear? There's clearly something wrong here, right? So I did some Googling on some shape types. And then I was like, okay, let me test out these whole brief thing, right? So anyways, I ordered some online. It ended up in the mail. I wore it. And oh my God. So I wore briefs one day. I wore something else the next day. And oh my goodness, the difference snug underwear makes, folks. The difference that snug underwear makes. So that is my win. Okay, a clothing pivot. That's been my win. It makes a difference on your day. So what has been your win of the week? Okay, it could be personal. It could be business. What has been your win of the week? I know for some people it's a holiday this weekend, right? Did you spend time with the family? Did you just take a break and just relax? By all means, let us know what has been your win of the week. So who's our guest, right? So as I mentioned, Marcia has been for more than 25 years, passionately speaking and guiding teams on how to pivot effectively, right? She was mentored by Dr. W. Edwards Deming. She's nominated for the International Deming Prize, writes a leadership column for the Silicon Valley Business Journal, and has taught MBA classes at 6 universities. Yes. So we are happy to have her here, Marcia, talking about the pivot, the real pivot, the real pivot. So we're talking about the real pivot, the pivot provocateur. So, Marcia, how do you define pivot?
So pivot means that someone sees a need and does an abrupt and usually rapid shift in direction. So that's what we experienced with the pandemic. Some people do it in a career. So, I mean, many people, the pandemic is a great example, really, because so many people had to pivot so quickly, whether it was being in their office and having to pivot and work at home. It was then having children not go to school, but begin learning at home. And then juggling many times all of the different generations. And if you have, toddlers and 2 working parents, and you have grade school age children or college age, teens that are all back home in a more confined space, and maybe elders, maybe a grandparent was in elder care but can't be there anymore. Everyone was having to pivot both professionally and personally, and as well as with the community, what happened. So that was a really so many examples there about pivoting.
And what was your pivot during the last? What would you say was your biggest pivot that you made during the last 2 years?
Well, it wasn't so much the personal part, because I'm used to traveling. I'm used to being alone and things like that. So, and having a home office as well. When I'm not on the road, I'm in my office. So that was easy. The pivot for me was actually probably not being on the road, and then shifting to people still needed help. So being on the Zooms and having the conversations and the meetings and the classes and the webinars, that was the biggest shift. Now, so many people are used to it, but those first few weeks and months, we kept thinking, oh, it's going to be over any day, but it wasn't.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I remember I was in California at that time. And so for me, the biggest pivot was because California was a state that pretty much like shut down. It was like, all right, no events. So for me, the biggest pivot was ultimately at that time, I'll do my business based off of networking. So I was very much offline. So the pivot for me was going online to digital. I started my Facebook business page literally because of the pandemic. Because beforehand, I was just like, I don't need a business page. So so that was like for me, the biggest pivot there. So curious, what would you say, like when you're helping people navigate like pivots, what would you say are some common challenges that come up when it comes to helping either leaders or teams or whatever it may be? Yeah.
So getting clarity about what the pivot is. So what is the need that they are identifying? And then getting the team together and articulating what that is. So, for example, we saw the car manufacturers pivot, and instead of making cars, they were making the ventilators. We saw breweries who were used to making beer pivot, and they started making hand sanitizer. So for any organization, once they saw that their customers were needing something different, what did they do? What did they create in order to meet the customer needs in a different way? So those were a few of the examples.
I love that. I love that. And we're going to take a quick short break. When we come back, Marcia here is going to share with us some top tips that she shares on how you can make that real effective pivot as well for your business. And so,
if you're a storefront business owner, salon owner, or brick and mortar shop owner, including a cafe, home decor, furniture, or clothing boutique, then listen up. We have some incredible discounted workshops at vzamy.com for our podcast listeners to help you increase your sales by 50%. If you are looking for more tips on reviving your business, make sure to visit our website, vzamy.com. That's vzamy.com. To register for our upcoming business growth workshop on staff management, financial management, and time management. It's your time to revive, grow, and scale your shop so you can go on that vacation and still have your shop thriving. Visit vzamy.com. That's V for Vanessa, Z for zebra, A for animal, M for money, Y as in yes.com. Visit vzamy.com for more details.
yes. Love it, love it, love it. So what would you say, Marcia? So far, you gave so many great examples and points during the pandemic that people had to pivot. And, the thing is that even throughout, even in 2008, people had to pivot, right? And things will never end up, there's always going to be some opportunity for companies to pivot because you just don't know. You just don't know what life has to offer, right? And so what are sort of maybe top, 2, 3, 5 tips you got for maybe as a business owner listening right now where they're, because now it's kind of a little bit of a, I'd say post-pandemic pivot shift or something that's happening, but there's definitely some in between where it's not as it was 6 months ago, and it's probably still more change to come. And so kind of like, what advice do you give for that business owner who's kind of just like, oh, and then you have the recession and all that stuff happening. What is
in there too?
Yeah, it's gonna, so what are some tips you got going on there as well?
Yeah. Well, for one thing, entrepreneurs need to think about what is it that they can provide of value. So, and it might mean changing the business, stopping the business that they have been used to doing and letting it go in order to survive. It's kind of like Kodak. Or if we look at the Fortune 500 companies that were on the list in 1955 when the first list came out, more than 60% of those Fortune 500 corporations no longer exist. They did not pivot. They did not listen to customers. They didn't say, okay, that buggy whip is going away, so I need to pivot to create a new market, new services, new products. So there's 3 strategies that I recommend that entrepreneurs look at. And those are, and it's like a 3-legged stool. So when you think of quality is a business strategy. So, and the customer is the one that defines quality. So they're the ones that find that value. So what can you deliver in products or services that will satisfy a customer? The second strategy is continual improvement. You have to continually be improving the work, the information flow, the flow of your communication, both internally and out to your customer. So that's the second strategy. And the third strategy of the 3-legged stool is innovation. It's not enough to improve and improve. Your third leg has to be what is new and different and bold and what's going to go to the next level. Because we could, from decades ago, improve the buggy whip, but the buggy whip is never going to take us to the car, the hybrid car, the electric car, the flying car. So we have to continually ask ourselves, what is new or different or bold that can not only serve our current market, but create new markets to go forward. So that's why we have to, great leaders are always pivoting. It wasn't just during the pandemic, but for the 25 plus years that I've been consulting with executive teams and boards of directors, it's always about, you always have to be pivoting, and you have a foundation to pivot from when you understand that your job as a leader is to create a system that has a lot of parts but are interactive, and they're all working together to serve a customer. And if you think in terms of, well, we pivot and we have that foundation when it's all about quality, serving the customer, having a clear aim that we all as a team can work toward, the more that leaders can communicate with their organization the direction they want to go, and let the people figure out how to take them there. But
we'll get into the teams in a bit, Ashley, because I wanted to touch on something. So you mentioned a lot of points, Ashley, there. But with that in mind, right? So something you said was like innovation is not enough to improve and improve and improve and improve, right? There's like a way to improve most effectively. I think a lot what someone may be missing that I want them to understand, right? If you're listening, whether you're listening on the podcast or you're watching us live here or you're watching a replay, it's the word customers, right? The word customers and the idea of listening to your customers, right? And so it's like, for example, so I teach a entrepreneurship course, and today a topic I was talking, one of the assignments that's due this weekend for the students is I was letting them know, like to do customer interviews for their businesses. So they're more in the early stage of business. My clients are more so like businesses that have been around for 10 plus years. But what's common and what connects to what Marcia's here is saying, right, for those listening, is that no matter whether you're at year 0 with your business, or if you're like my clients where you're at year 12 with your business, it's always important to understand that you are serving the customer, right? And it's important to listen to the customer and keeping that in mind to help you effectively improve and innovate, right? As Marcia was saying, so you then have the right pivot, right? Or so that you don't end up, being the company that had the buggy whip that didn't, end up turning into what it needed to turn into. I love it, love it, love it. And so Marcia, you're getting into a little bit of the teams. And so a question around that is that, so what are some tips you have for people, business owners who do have teams, whether it's like 2 people or 8 people or 20 people, in terms of making that change happen? I know back when I was in corporate strategy, there was a lot of like this whole change management, and some people just don't like change, And so what are sort of some advice you have for those leaders who are, okay, they know that they have to change, but now they got to get the rest of the team as well?
2 things there that I want to respond to you about is it's essential that you be in touch with the customer, but don't ask the customers always, well, what do you want us to do, or what do you want us to create? Because they don't know. No, like Dr. Deming said, no customer asked for the electric light bulb or asked for, they had candles, they were doing fine, so they didn't need a light bulb. So the customers don't know. And it's just like Apple. They don't ask us what we want. They just give us the iPhone and the camera and everything is in there now. So it's like, what we need to observe what we need to do is more than ask the customer, be with the customer, observe the customer, spend time with the customer who is using our product or service.
Yeah. So it's like, it's not necessarily asking them, what do you want, but it's understanding what are they struggling with, right? Like what are the problems that they're going through? And you as an entrepreneur, you as an innovator, you as a visionary are then thinking about, how do I most effectively solve that problem given the resources and where my business is at, right?
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so then once the leaders see and have that vision of the direction that they want the company to go. So what is our compelling purpose? And it is not to make money. I always say, if you raise your hand, and I asked 200 CEOs this once, why are you in business? And some of them said, oh, to make a profit. Well, that's nice. But if that's your number one, you're on your way out of business, because that can't be your passionate, compelling purpose. That's having the profit are the results. That's your outcome. That's not the why that you're doing things. So when the leaders are very clear about their aim and they communicate that to the teams, then the teams can work together and figure out, how do we make that happen? And how do we go to the next step and the next step from there? And the more that the leaders create the environment, this is their job, not to motivate people. This is like one of those old management fads, thinking again, is leaders motivate people. No, they demotivate people. But their job is to create the environment so people are self-motivated. They can come to work, or they show up at work, wherever that is, and they can contribute. They can make a difference. They can do what they love. They can collaborate. They can be creative. It blossoms from there. And that's why companies can go from, like some of my clients, from 30 million, an owner wanted to go to 40 million. Instead, we went from 30 million to 300 million. There are turnarounds. Sometimes I walk in and companies are near bankruptcy. And so it's like, we need to do a fast turnaround, a fast pivot, and get them scaling to make a difference with their organization, so that people feel great about what they're doing and the difference they're making. And then they serve their customers. And together they can keep transforming the organization. And that's the job of leadership.
Love that. Love that. Love that. Love it. Fantastic. Fantastic. And so we went through a lot here. We're almost wrapping up the time. So the website, right? Marcia's website is at the bottom. But Marcia, how can people keep in touch, follow up with you? Are there any sort of final thoughts also you'd love to share? I know you have a whole book on this as well too. So for those who are looking to learn more insights, right? There's a whole book on this, multiple chapters. So by the way, in case you're wondering. And yes, any other final thoughts you would like to share with us here, Marcia?
So people can reach me through my book, Pivot, Disrupt, Transform. My email and contact information are in here. I've got my website, mdashko.com. It's on Amazon, and it's on Audible and Kindle and the whole thing. So if people prefer to listen or read, it's available. And I really invite people to email me or call and ask questions. I don't like to see people struggling, because they have choices, and they just have too many leaders have gotten stuck. And that's why so many organizations go out of business or struggle, and they don't need to. Most of them don't need to. They just need to pivot their thinking, get a strong, solid foundation for decision making, and then they can go forward.
I agree with that sentiment. Yes. We have someone commenting, loving the ideas around leaders. And so, Marcia, something you had mentioned a little bit earlier, right, about leaders need their why, their purpose. What's your why, Marcia? I think you kind of got into it a little bit. What's your why?
My why is to, people, the phrase make a difference. But for me, it's not only overall in society, but nowadays, I think that the education system really needs transformation, and that ties in with the family system. And if we focus on those, to pivot those, to make a difference, I want to make a difference with children, and the executives create the systems education and the corporations and nonprofits and healthcare and so forth. But we have to make a difference with the children because they're not coping so well now. And that's because there are a lot of adults that they haven't learned how to cope. And we need to be mentally well and better in our hearts. And we need to be working together and learning together and working together. And then we can make the difference that we need to in society.
Yeah, because essentially when it comes to pivot, right, there's so many pivots we talked about, right, even in company, but even in personal life. And so being able to cope with that, effectively and doing that well. And Marcia's on a mission to make that happen. So yeah, check out her book, check out her website. Thank you, Marcia, for joining us here tonight. For those, maybe... Happy to have you. If you didn't already tell, our show is not only about a story, but also about lessons and action items to keep you moving forward in your brick and mortar business or online business. We equip and empower through education. My why is because I find it unnecessary that only 25% of businesses survive past 15 years or more, right? That keyword being survive and the keyword being 25%. Way too low and way too unnecessary. And so for me, this is why I essentially love to bring experts here for you all to listen to get some tips that you need to keep moving forward, at least this week, right? And hopefully moving forward even further. So tune in every single Tuesday night. Entrepreneurship is a Marathon at 9 p.m. Eastern. And if you know of a brick and mortar business owner who is at least 10 years strong, who we should highlight on our show, by all means, send me a message on Facebook or LinkedIn to nominate them to be a guest. We have another sort of we have another gallery owner who is an expert, couple decades of business, coming to join us in a couple of weeks. Before then, we have Christophe Noir on work-life balance. We're going to be doing a joint discussion, the two of us. And then we have Jay Massey joining us to talk about the real estate investing space, right? I know a lot of my clients are not only doing their own business, but they also have that second, generational wealth journey that they're on as well for their grandkids. So the list continues. But point being, stay tuned. And thank you, Marcia, for joining us here this evening. If you liked what you heard, react to the bottom. Give me a like. Don't even give me the like. Give me the love, the heart, the light bulb on LinkedIn. If you had some insights from what Marcia shared tonight, if you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like. Also hit that red subscribe button. I want you to hit the red subscribe button. Give a scroll right now. I see you. Yes. Hit the subscribe button. And then also, by all means, feel free to leave a comment on what you thought of this episode, what you thought of Marcia, and whether you're not going to check out her book. Yes. With that being said, thank you for tuning in this evening. And if you are thinking to yourself, Vanessa, I want you as my business advisor, then by all means, I'd be happy to connect. So by all means, you're welcome to reach out to me at power.vzamy.com, and looking forward to connecting with some of you. Till then, entrepreneurship, yes, it is a marathon, but it's a marathon that you don't have to run alone. So see you again live next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Toodles!
Thanks for joining us this week on Entrepreneurship is a Marathon. If you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes or Spotify, or if you'd simply tell a friend about this episode. And if you are looking for more tips on reviving your business, make sure to visit our website, vzamy.com. That's vzamy.com. To register for our upcoming business growth workshop on staff management, financial management, and time management. It's your time to revive, grow, and scale. Visit vzamy.com. That's V for Vanessa, Z for zebra, A for animal, M as in money, Y as in yes.com. Visit vzamy.com for more details.